Since late November, the Minnesota Timberwolves have put together a 17-6 run. That stands as a top winning percentage in the league during that period. Honestly, I feel like the basketball world isn't giving nearly enough credit to the transformation occurring in Minnesota at the moment.
Gets it in, turning a three for the tie. Good! Anthony Edwards with 1.1 second to go in regulation.
Because when you truly focus and observe this roster, the way they are locking down on defense, the high-level efficiency Edwards is showing, and how focused the entire group is on both sides of the ball, it doesn't resemble the same Timberwolves unit that was struggling through the opening weeks of the campaign trying to establish their role. Something has snapped into place. A basic shift has occurred in how this franchise approaches the game, and if you are still ignoring Minnesota as a genuine title contender, you might realize the truth too late. They are currently 4th in the Western Conference and producing the most dominant basketball in the league over the last 2 months. So let's analyze what has shifted and why this specific edition of the Timberwolves might be distinct from any version we've witnessed in the past. Here is the reality regarding Minnesota's opening stretch. It wasn't poor. They were stacking wins, remaining in the mix, and doing what elite teams do, but a certain element was absent. You could sense it while viewing them. The steadiness was lacking. They would dominate one night, then lose a sloppy game 72 hours later. That erratic energy that has haunted this team for a long time was still present. Then, late November arrived, and instantly they became one of the most dangerous squads in the sport. Now, it hasn't been perfectly clean. On New Year's Eve in Atlanta, the situation got messy. The Wolves were trailing big against the Hawks, and with roughly 8 minutes remaining, Finch benched the starters. Anthony Edwards was clearly upset. He reacted poorly and headed straight to the locker room, just walked out. This happened in his home state of Georgia, with his grandpa and relatives observing from the crowd. Following the match, Coach Finch labeled it intolerable and stated Edwards must remain on the bench to support his group. For a second, it felt like a major internal issue was starting. However, since that moment, the Wolves have produced some of their most impressive basketball of the year. They handled the situation privately, moved past it, and returned to the grind. Finch explained it clearly. Throughout the league, every roster deals with these minor incidents. So what actually shifted? Let me break it down step by step. It begins with Anthony Edwards. On January 8th, Edwards reached 10,000 career points. He's only 24. Just 2 athletes in the history of the NBA reached that mark at a younger age than him, LeBron James and Kevin Durant. But the record itself isn't the headline. What counts is the method he's using to get there. Edwards is putting up 29 points a night this year, on 50% from the floor and 40% from deep. Do you realize how uncommon that is? In the history of professional basketball, only 4 legends have posted 29-plus points while hitting those 50 and 40 shooting marks: Larry Bird, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and Nikola Jokic. So what occurred? What is the difference between last year's version of Ant and this one? Michael Jordan is the reason. Last year, Edwards was annoyed. Opponents had discovered ways to disrupt him. They were throwing double teams, playing him tight, closing off his paths to the rim, and forcing him into difficult covered shots. And it was effective. His shooting percentages fell. He was taking bad shots late in the shot clock. You could watch the annoyance grow every time he was cornered. Consequently, he reached out to MJ, and Jordan shared a piece of advice that totally changed his perspective on the defense. He told him that being double-teamed is the ultimate form of respect a team can show you. Now, your task is to learn how to dismantle that double team. That talk opened up a new level for Edwards.
Keep the ball moving. Edwards drives in on Wiggins. Oh my! Anthony Edwards! A serious rack attack!
He dedicated his entire offseason to sharpening his mid-range package and post-game moves alongside his trainer, Chris Hines. The focus wasn't just on shooting, it was on mastering his reads during double teams and learning exactly where to find his open teammates when the defense collapsed on him. If you actually look at the hard data, you can pinpoint exactly where that grind paid off. His efficiency from the mid-range jumped from 39% last season to a deadly 47% this year. His ability to finish at the rim climbed from 64% to an elite 71%. And perhaps most importantly, his three-point shooting crossed the 40% mark for the very first time in his career. These are massive leaps in the specific areas that separate good scorers from the truly unstoppable offensive forces. And he saw all that preparation come together perfectly when he hit the game winner over Victor Wembanyama against San Antonio. You have 7'5" of alien length and athleticism right in his face, arguably the most disruptive defender in the entire sport, and Edwards pulls up with absolute confidence and buries a shot. The Wolves rallied back from a 15-point hole in that game, and Ant delivered the final dagger. This is undeniably a top 5 player in the NBA right now, and during this 17-6 stretch, he has been proving it every single night. But here's the thing that separates legitimate title contenders from teams that just have a star who can get buckets. You need a real identity. You need something you can rely on when the shots stop falling, the other team is making a run, and the arena is going crazy. For Minnesota, that identity is built entirely on the defensive end, and what Rudy Gobert is doing right now might be the most underappreciated story in the entire league. The Timberwolves possess the 7th-ranked defense in the NBA this season. That sounds pretty solid, until you actually look at the data when Rudy Gobert sits on the bench. When Gobert is on the floor, Minnesota's defensive rating is a stifling 108. That figure would rank as the 2nd-best defense in the entire NBA if it were a team's full-season number. However, when he goes to the bench, that number explodes to 124. That is equivalent to the absolute worst defense in the NBA. That is a massive 16.2-point swing. That is the largest on-off defensive impact in the entire league. No one else is even close to making that kind of difference. Think about the weight of that for a second. With Gobert protecting the rim, Minnesota defends like an elite championship caliber unit that can suffocate any offense. Without him, they defend like a lottery team that can't stop a nosebleed. One single player creating that level of disparity is almost unprecedented in the modern NBA. And it's not like Gobert is just standing in the paint, swatting shots and hoping for the best. He is holding opponents to just 48.2% shooting at the rim, which is the 2nd-best mark in the NBA among players who have played 25-plus games this season. He also leads the entire league in defensive shooting influence, a stat that measures how much a player reduces both shot quality and shooting efficiency at the same time. Gobert is currently on pace to make his 9th all-defensive team in the last 10 years. During this 17-6 run, Minnesota's defense has been the backbone of everything they have achieved. They can grind out the ugly games when necessary, they can survive cold shooting nights where nothing seems to fall. Because when Gobert is patrolling the paint, the other team has to work twice as hard for every single bucket they get. And that is exactly what separates good teams from great ones when the playoffs arrive, and the game slows down. Alright, so you have Edwards playing at a top 5 level and Gobert anchoring a dominant defense. That is your foundation right there, but you still need everyone else to buy in and execute their roles consistently. What has made this run feel different is that the supporting cast has finally figured out exactly who they are and what they need to do every night. Let's kick things off with Julius Randle. He has been the steady hand for Minnesota all year long, putting up 22 points, 7 boards, and leading the squad with nearly 6 assists a night. That passing ability is massive, and honestly, it doesn't get enough credit. When defenses swarm Anthony Edwards and try to force the ball out of his hands with traps, Randle steps up as a genuine secondary playmaker. He's a bully ball scorer who can punish smaller defenders in the post, but he has also evolved into a willing and effective passer when the double team comes. That balance between scoring and creating gives Minnesota's offense a completely new layer. Edwards doesn't have to carry the entire load alone. When he gets trapped, Randle makes a right read. When Randle has a mismatch on the block, they feed him and let him go to work. That versatility is exactly what you need in the playoffs, when teams start game planning specifically to stop your number 1 option. He has also proven he can bring that same physical intensity on defense. During their comeback victory over San Antonio, Randle came up with huge stops in the 4th quarter against Victor Wembanyama to swing the momentum back in Minnesota's favor. Then you have Jaden McDaniels, who is quietly putting together a monster two-way campaign. He is hitting 51% from the floor and nearly 42% from deep, career highs across the board, while remaining one of the premier perimeter lockdowns in the sport. When you combine his length and versatility with Rudy Gobert's rim protection, you get a defensive duo that can switch everything, protect the paint, and shut down multiple options at once. Opposing teams absolutely hate dealing with that kind of length. Meanwhile, Dante DiVincenzo has turned into the emotional engine of this roster. Coach Finch calls him the ultimate next play guy, meaning he never dwells on errors and keeps the team moving forward. After a tough loss earlier this year, DiVincenzo told the media, "We can't just rely on talent. The energy and competitive spirit have to be there every single night. The compete factor is everything. If you compete, it hides a lot of mistakes." That mindset is contagious. When your gritty guard sets the tone and refuses to take a play off, it spreads through the whole locker room. Everyone else has to match that intensity. And Naz Reid continues to be one of the most dangerous bench weapons in the NBA. He won Sixth Man of the Year a couple of seasons ago, and he is making a serious case for it again, providing Minnesota with instant buckets and energy the moment the starters sit. Even Bones Highland has been chipping in with solid minutes off the bench. What makes this 17-6 run sustainable is that all these guys are thriving in their roles simultaneously. That is rare. Usually someone is in a slump, someone is hurt, or someone is unhappy with their touches. But right now, everyone is clicking at the same time. When you have that level of depth and chemistry surrounding a superstar and a defensive anchor, you become incredibly tough to beat. So, the big question on everyone's mind, is this legitimate, or is this just another fleeting Timberwolves hot streak that will vanish when the pressure rises? Look, I understand the skepticism 100%. The Timberwolves have been defined by inconsistency and heartbreak for as long as most of us can remember. They look like world beaters one night, then sleepwalk through a loss to a tanking team the next. That emotional roller coaster has been part of their DNA for years. And honestly, flashes of that still appear occasionally. They dropped a lazy game to Brooklyn. They got crushed by Atlanta. It happens, even to elite teams. But here's the difference with this year's version of the Timberwolves. Minnesota is one of only 5 teams in the entire NBA with both a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. That balance is incredibly rare, and it is a signature of a true championship contender. Most squads are elite on one end and average on the other. The Wolves are dominant at both. They currently rank second in the league in fourth quarter scoring. When the game tightens up and possessions become valuable, they have a superstar who demands the ball and has proven repeatedly that he can close the deal. This group knows exactly who they are in crunch time. They've been excellent at taking care of business against teams they should beat, suffering only 3 losses to sub-.50 opponents all year. That consistency against lower-tier competition used to be their Achilles heel. This season, they're winning the games they're supposed to win without slipping up, and against the elite, they've taken down OKC, the Spurs, Boston, and New York. They can hang with anyone in the league, and they know it. This is a team that reached the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row without being the favorite either time. They understand the grind of playoff basketball. They know what it takes to survive and advance in a loaded West. And right now, they're playing their best basketball of the year as they head into the second half of the season. This is not the same old Minnesota Timberwolves. For years, the narrative has been, they're good but too inconsistent. Good but can't close against the best. Good but not championship material. Anthony Edwards is playing like a top 5 player on the planet. Rudy Gobert is having a historically dominant defensive year. The role players are locked in and executing every single night. So what do you think? Can this Minnesota squad keep this momentum alive for the rest of the season? And do they need to make a trade for a point guard before the deadline? Drop your takes in the comments below. Smash that like button, subscribe for more breakdowns like this, and check out the next video on your screen right now.